Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, dear brothers and sisters in Islam. This is Samiduri from Istiqamah Tube. Today, I want to share with you how we can make memorizing Quran easier. Bismillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. First of all, I would like to start today's program with a story. Our story is about a farmer. His name is Walid. Walid one day when he was going with his donkey, the donkey got stuck in a hole. Then he tried to get it out, trying a lot of different methods, but he couldn't get it out. So he could not ask for help or go to the nearest town near him. The only thing he had was he was trying his best to get it out from the hole. But when he tried every method he knows, his only option was to ask Allah for his help. Then the sun got hotter and hotter, and he asked the salat time got closer to the zuhr. Then he went to nearest river and he made a wudu. Then he prayed his salat and he made dua. He made a long dua asking Allah, Ya Allah, help me. Walid was a pious person and he used to be closer to Allah in his better times. Now at his worst time, he asked Allah a lot. Then when Walid couldn't get anything, any person's help or anything from around him, he started to bring food for the donkey. Then a couple of days passed. Then he asked Allah and he couldn't get anything. So he decided to let go of the donkey and he wanted to bury it in that hole. Then he brought soils upon the donkey, pouring over it, and the donkey shook it from above his body, and he started to stand upon the soil. And imagine how the donkey would feel when he was trying to bury it. But he didn't give up. The donkey also fought for his life. The donkey stepped upon the soil while Walid used to pour all the soil. And after a long hour of pouring soil into the hole, the donkey got out, and Walid praised Allah, saying, Ya Rab. He praised Allah that he thought he gave up on him, but Allah didn't give up on him. He just wanted him to show him, even at the time of desperation, Allah hears everything. Then Walid made a sujood shukr, and he prostrated for Allah. The moral of the story is that we don't have to lose hope, because لا تيأسوا من روح الله, as the Quran says. We don't have to lose hope from Allah. Only non-Muslims will lose hope. We have Allah that He will never make us lose hope. Because when we study about the life of Ibrahim Khalilullah, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, Prophet Ibrahim begged Allah, made a dua, begged Allah for a child for more than 100 years, but Allah did not give him. That does not mean that Allah didn't love him. It just shows that Allah wanted him to ask harder, always to ask him, to beg him. Then after 100 years, Allah gave him Ismail. So if we see ourselves, we are not better than Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, but we are also the slave of Allah. Allah does not leave us alone. Also, Musa alayhi salam, the prophet, the Kalimullah, the only prophet that talked with Allah directly, listening to the voice of Allah, was Musa alayhi salam. But Musa asked for Allah to destroy the wells of Fir'aun, and Musa begged for more than 40 years, and Allah did not reply for him, because this doesn't mean that Allah did not love Musa. He wanted to help Musa, but Allah told him to be a patient. When we ask Allah, when we beg Him, when we make dua, we have to be a patient. We have patience. And in that manner, Allah will give us whatever we ask for. Even He will give us more than what we asked for if we have a patience. So this is the story of today. When we enter to the program of today, it is how we are going to be able to memorize Quran easily. How many of us wanted to memorize Quran but we could not help ourselves? How many of us started memorizing Quran but lost it after a while? How many of us started to memorize Quran but we could not make it to the final point? Today, biiznillah, I have collected advices from slave of Allah, peoples that memorized Quran, and how did they made it to the final point. First, innamal a'malu binniyah. Everything is based on niyyah. We have to make a good intention. That intention is, Ya Allah, I want to memorize this Quran for the sake of you. We have to make such kind of intention. And Rasulullah said, خيركم من تعلم القرآن فعلمه. Rasulullah said, the best of you is who learned Quran and who taught it. So we have to know this, because it is an honor to learn Quran and to teach it. If anyone wants to do something, behind that thing there must be a reason, and we have to know why are we memorizing the Quran. For example, if there are people who are learning Italy language, well, I am not an Italian, and I won't be going to Italy, and I won't be living in Italy, so learning Italy will not be useful for me. It's just nonsense. So we have to know why we learn Italy. But if I am a merchant or I'm a tourist going to Italy, I will learn Italy with that people. That is how it is. So if we are memorizing Quran, we have to know what we will be gaining. What is the gain for us? If we know our gain, we will learn it. But if we don't know anything, if we don't have a reason to learn it, to memorize it, we could not be able to memorize it, because it lacks motivation. Again, there are ustaz, ulama. In the day of the judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, اقرأ واركع ورتل كما كنت ترتل في الدنيا فإن منزلتك عند آخر آية تقرأها. In the day of judgment, Allah say, recite the Quran that you used to memorize it, and recite it how you used to recite it in the dunya. Your place is in the last ayah, in the last verse of Quran, you memorized it. So if someone memorized the Quran and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to him, recite it, and every ayah he recites, every verse he reads, as that day, Allah gives him an honor and a place above any other places, like a stairs, and each steps have its own place, its own honor in the Jannah. So that person, the one who memorized Quran, will be going upwards with each verse he memorized. So people listen to such kind of hadith and say, I want to attain the most nearest to Allah, and they started to memorize it. This is one way of memorizing Quran. And other hadith is, inna lillahi ahlina minan nas. أهلين جلساءه المقربون منه ليس قرابة البشر تعالى الله. قالوا ومن هم يا رسول الله؟ قال أهل القرآن هم أهل الله وخاصته. Some people start to memorize Quran listening to this hadith. It means that Allah has His own peoples. They are like they sit next to Him. Imagine sitting with Allah Almighty, not like a relationship with the relationship kind of the people which have people with people. It is kind of like with an official state government. For example, if you are sitting with the prime minister of a country, you have attained respect, honor of the people. So imagine if you are going to sit next to Allah in the day of in the Jannah. So people start memorizing Quran, imagining the place they will attain in the Jannah. This one is the one hadith. So these are the first steps or requirements if we are going to start memorizing Quran. The second one is we have to minimize using of media, social media platforms. At this time, it has its own advantage and disadvantage. But if that someone wants to memorize the word of Allah, he has to leave it alone. And if someone leaves something for the sake of Allah, Allah will give him better things. If someone does not leave the social media, every time somebody talks or tweets or posts something, that person is going to waste his time. Each day, if we use 30 minutes of social media, we are away from the word of Allah 30 minutes. In that 30 minutes, at least, we can memorize 5 verses of Quran. But every time social media is there, we lose our time, our valuable time. If we are going to memorize the word of Allah, we should not be concerned with such kinds of talks from such individuals or anybody on the social media. So we have to know that our time is very valuable and it will not be coming back until the day of judgment. When we memorize Quran, the eyes just like a camera, it records, and the ear is it will record the voice, and our mouth speaks it. The muscles of the leaves of the memory memorize it while reading it. For example, يسألونك عن اليتامى قل إصلاح لهم خير. The eye is seeing the mushaf, the Quran, and the lips are reciting it, and the ear is listening to it. 3 of our senses are memorizing the Quran all together. It's just not memorizing it in eye or in sound only. So the Quran is more than 600 pages, and our need is, as a human being, we sometimes feel up and we sometimes feel low. For example, in some days we may feel happy or we may feel sad. Based on this, when we started memorizing Quran, when we are on the low, we should not feel too low to leave memorizing Quran, because we have to fight our nafsiyah, because our soul always orders us with bad things that are useless for our deen or dunya. There are people, as I told you earlier, most of us are we have lows and ups when we live, but there are some people have the constant line in memorizing Quran, and the shaitan makes waswasa to those kind of people, it tells them, no, wait, you can memorize it later, or you can memorize it tomorrow, you just relax and enjoy. But we have to strive our nafsiyah, and Allah helps who strive and struggle for memorizing the Quran. And we have to know that ittaqullaha wa kunu ma'as sadiqin. We have to be with pious people, and a true Muslims, because when we memorize Quran, we need someone to listen to our memorization. Daily, we have to memorize 15 lines or one page, and in around 600 days we can finish it, inshallah, bismillah. If we are not able to finish it, or if you cannot memorize 15 lines a day or one page, we can just memorize half the page, which means we can finish it in 1200 days. This is not an easy task, but everybody has different capabilities on their own. We don't have to see how other people are memorizing Quran. For example, our friend may have a memorization ability of 2 pages a day, and if we cannot even memorize half a page, we should not have to feel disappointed, or we should not have to feel low of ourselves, because just like imagine if that friend has a car and I have a bicycle, and someone has a motorcycle, and we are going at the same place. So each three of us will arrive at different time, but the main thing is we arrive that place. Memorization is just like that. If our friends have different speed, different memorizing ability, we should not have to see them and feel threatened by them. We just have to be focusing on ourselves. The third point is the person who is memorizing us the Quran must be a person with sakina, who has a patience, who is slow, who is understanding ustaz. Because when we are memorizing a Quran from that person or that ustaz, we have to be clearly knowing what he is saying. For example, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. If he say like this, there is a missing B, Bismillah. We have to be careful who we choose to learn from, because that person's reading will be memorized, stamped in our heart for the rest of our lives. Even if we made a mistake, even if the ustaz made a mistake and nobody corrected him, that mistake will be our memorization. So the alim or the teacher that memorizes us should be clearly understandable, should speak or should teach in clearly understandable, listenable words. For example, Zubillahi minash shaytanir rajim. Here he is missing alif and ayn. A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim. It have to be clearly like this, so that a person who is memorizing Quran must know what he is doing. Jibril alayhi salam, when he taught Rasulullah, he taught them slowly, and Rasulullah learned from him just like that. And Rasulullah also taught to the Sahaba, to the the companions of him, in slowly, so that they understand it, they can listen to it, because Quran say فَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ فَاتَّبِعْ قُرْآنَهُ. Even the mother of the believers, Aisha radiallahu anha, said when she prayed behind Rasulullah, she could count the harfs that starts with fatha till that to the amount of Rasulullah reciting the Quran slowly. She was able to know, or she could count the numbers of harfs that are fathas in the reciting, in the reading of Rasulullah. That is how much Rasulullah was slowly, so that people understand the Quran. Rasulullah was not only slowly reading Quran only, because a lot of hadiths had been transferred from him. If he was not a speaker of clearly, we could not be able to know or learn all of those hadiths from his companions, because Rasulullah was slowly a patient person. The fourth point is when we are memorizing Quran, we should not change the Quran, because Quran, there are different colors, there are different sizes, there are different writings. When we start to memorizing Quran, we should use only one type of Quran from the beginning to the last, because that Quran is memorized. If it is constantly the same, we will not get confused, because if we are going to change it every time, when we go to the masjid we memorize with another Quran, when we come to home to study we use another Quran, when we leave for another town we read using another Quran. This confuses our brain, so we should only use single Quran. The fifth point is we have to know the best time to memorize Quran. Everyone's have his own active time. We have to use our active time. Some people use after Fajr prayer, people feel active at that time. Some people memorize Quran. Some people want to memorize Quran after Asr, after Asr, where there is less people in the masjid or in their house, or some people want to memorize Quran in in the night alone, after everyone is asleep. So we have to know what is the best time for us to memorize. We don't have to see our friends, our other students. We have to know what is best for us. And when we read Quran, when we memorize Quran, that time should not be the time we are very much tired or we are bored, because we are going to read the word of Allah. We have to be at our best time. The sixth point is that whenever we are going to memorize a Quran, we have to cover the other side, because the Quran have two pages, this the right side, the left side. And if you are on the right side, we have to cover the left side with a white paper, because when we are memorizing this part, some verses of the Quran in the opposite side may interfere with it when we see it. So we have to cover that side. The seventh point is كلما تكرر تقرر. It means whenever it is repeated, it has the capability of staying in our heart more and longer. So we have to read and study the Quran a lot of times. For example, when we first start, we have to read the first ayah, the first verb, 10 up to 15 times with a loud voice, so that our ears also listen to what we are reading. So after reciting or reading the one verse up to 10 or 15 times, when we jump to the second verse or the second ayah, we will do the same. We will read it aloud 10 up to 15 times. And the third step is that when we combine both ayah, we will recite them together 5 times, because we have already recited them, read them 15 or 10 times each. So when we combine them, we will recite them 5 times, and we have to listen to Quran reciters. There are a lot of reciters nowadays, the Imams of the Mecca and the Imams of Medina. My favorite one is Ali Abdullah Jabir. He used to recite, rahimahullah, he used to recite Quran slowly, and his recitation, wallahi, melts your heart. I love him, and I want if I wish if I have a recitation like him, and I always strive to achieve that, bismillah. And the eighth point when memorizing we have to remember is that we should not use a smaller size, pocket sized Quran, because those Qurans have smaller words. So when we start to reading without even memorizing, our eyes got tiresome, so we should not have to use them. If we are tired, we will not be able to memorize Quran, and as that state of mind, it will not be able, even if we sat 10 hours, such a kind of boring or depressed or stressed or tiresome, we will not be able to memorize Quran. So we should not have to use smaller or pocket-sized Quran. We should just use medium-sized Quran. Ninth point is that الذي علم بالقلم. When we are memorizing Quran, we should have to write it at least once, or if we are able to write it, we have to write it with our own hands, with a pen and paper, 2 times if we are able to, because if we write it, our hands even get the memory of that, and even if we were reciting or leading a prayer, and if we forget that, the memory of writing it will make us remember it. So there were alims that used to teach their students. When they teach them, they just made them to write it on the blackboard, that students memorize it in an amazing way, so they will not forget it. The 10th point is that people who have who are older people, when they memorize Quran, even if it is not older people, some people, when they memorize Quran, when they face such verses like, for example, وَإِنَبًا وَقَدْبًا, what is قَدْبًا? وَحَدَائِقَ وَغُلْبًا, what is غُلْبًا? They ask for the translation or the meaning of that verse, and when that meaning is become clear, they will try memorizing it with the meaning of that word, that verse, and memorization becomes easier for them. So if we face such kinds of things, we have to know the meaning, or we have to ask our teachers. The 11th point is that when we memorize Quran, we have to examine, we have to put our memorization into a test. We have to put people who help us. We have to put people, or our friends or our teacher. They have to ask us not in a orderly manner, because that's the way we memorize it. If we want really test our memorization, we have to we have to be asked in random way. For example, the verse from Surah Furqan number 15, verse 15, what does it say? Well, I mean, how, recite it for me. And in that manner, again, another random place, even as the same surah, the same Furqan, because if we since we are memorized, since we have memorized it, we don't have to worry about its order or its randomness, because we have already memorized it. So we have to test our memorization as that such kinds of way. And even if you want to upgrade our test, let our friends or our teachers make us write that's the same verse. For example, we mentioned earlier that if our teacher asks us what the verse, start from the verse number 15, Surah Furqan, and next time let them ask us start writing it, because as we said, we wrote the Quran, the Arabic words, in a beautiful way, so we won't forget it. If we test ourselves like this, the Quran wallahi will be forgotten in our minds. And the 12th point is that when we memorize Quran, we have to use it to stand up in Layl. We have to pray. We have to stand in Qiyamul Layl. Then we have to lead people in prayers, because our Qurans have to be put on work. We don't have to be afraid of getting mistakes, because only people who does not do anything doesn't get any mistake. As we try harder, we will make a lot of mistakes, but we don't have to afraid getting mistakes, and we don't have to not lead people in prayers. So if people correct us, we will get better, inshallah. So we don't have to get afraid of leading people and getting mistake, because in the Quran Allah says for he told to the Rasulullah, رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَاخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا وَأَخْطَأْنَا, because even if we get mistake, it is the nature of humankind. Allah does not uh, punish us for that mistake. Then if we used all these points, all these steps, and if our memorization does not work, we have to make tawbah. We have to leave any things that we are doing, wrongdoing, that Allah hates it. Because if we do not leave haram things, Allah will not allow us to memorize His word, because His words want a bowl. Like if a bowl is not clean, if we put a pure water in that bowl, no matter how much pure the water is, if the bowl is dirty, the water gets dirty also. So if we have haram things doing, if we are doing haram things, we will not be able to memorize Quran. Allah will not be helping us. Even Allah will make us forget everything we memorized. So we have to leave haram things, and we have to ask Allah, because Allah said, ask me and I will give you. Will uh, Allah will feel shameful if he doesn't return to our du'as, supplications. Allah will not leave our hands empty handed. He will not reply empty handed, because he will feel ashamed not to reply to his servants, to his slaves. So we have to ask Allah to make it easier for us. And then lastly, Quran is like a medicine. At the start, any medicine uh, is not uh, is not liked by anyone who uses it. But when that person sees the healing process, or when he sees differences, he starts focusing using that medicine. Quran is just like that. When we memorize Quran as the first, it is very harder, and giving up is very much easier. But if we get past that, after that memorization becomes wallah more sweeter, and you just want to finish memorize the Quran, and you just want to lead peoples. And may Allah accept our efforts to please Him. And if there is anyone who you see difficulty in memorization Quran, just share them this video, and so that they and you benefit the ajrs, the deeds of sharing a good work. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.